cone. Ooh, I'll make this. So you did cone questions in grade 10. Do you remember solving cone questions? They gave you this same formula in grade 10, and you had to solve different things. Sometimes you had to find the surface area, in which case you'd use this formula and plug in the radius and plug in the slant height. Sometimes they gave you the surface area and the radius, and they asked you to find the slant height, but never last year did they give you the area and the slant height and say, what's the radius? Because last year you weren't able to solve equations that had r squared and another r in them. But now that we have a quadratic formula, now that we have factoring, we can do that. So if we plug everything we know into the formula, we know it has a surface area of 300. We don't know the radius, but we know the slant height is 15. We get this equation. And this equation that we're trying to solve for has something squared, like an x squared. That's what makes it a quadratic equation. We also have another r here, so we can't use the technique of just getting everything to one side and then square rooting both sides. If we just had an r squared, we could have got everything on one side and square rooted both sides to solve. But this one we have an r squared and an r. So our options are factoring. And you ask yourself, have I ever factored something with a pi in it? Probably not. The other things are completing the square and quadratic formula. And for the most part, quadratic formula is going to be easier. But in order to use the quadratic formula works when you have something in this form first. So we need to make one side of the equation equal to 0. Can you see that probably the easiest way to do that would be to subtract the 300? If I subtract 300 on both sides, I will get 0 equals here. Now, in order to get it in this format, ax squared plus bx plus c, I look at my variable, which is r. That's what I want to solve for. I'm going to put the pi r squared first. Can you see that my a value is going to be pi? And then I'm going to put and pi r times 15 is the same as 15 times pi times r. Can you see that my b value is going to be 15 pi? You could type that into your calculator and get a big long decimal, but for now we'll just keep it as 15 pi. And finally, I've subtracted 300, so my c value is going to be minus 300. And I'll tell you right now, if you use the guess and check method to try and find r, you might be here for a very, very, very long time, especially with pi in there. So now, here we have our a value. These two together are our b value. And here we have our c value. So we can look and use the quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula says x equals, but this time our variable is r, so we'll do r equals. Just to remind you, maybe I'll write it up. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's our quadratic formula. So now we just have to plug things in and be careful as we do it. It's going to be negative b, so it'll be negative 15 pi plus or minus square root of 15 pi squared. For a value is pi. C value is negative 300 all over 2, and our a value is pi. Now we're going to type this into our calculator all at once. We're going to get two values. We're going to do it once where we make the plus or minus the plus sign. And we're going to do it once where we make the plus or minus the minus sign. And see what answers come out of our calculator when we do both of those. Now, if you have the newest version of a calculator, I would suggest going alpha y equals and choosing the fraction button so that you can write this all in as a fraction. If you don't have the newest calculator, then on your screen here, you're going to need an extra set of brackets around the entire top and an extra set of brackets around the entire bottom. So on the top, I have negative 15, pi button is right here, and I'll do the plus one first, plus square root of bracket 15 pi squared minus 4, a was pi, and c was negative 300. And on the bottom of my fraction, I have 2 pi. So you can type it in exactly like you have there. Maybe I'll just see if I can. And I first did it with the plus sign. Push enter, see if you can get 4.81. 4.818, does it say to the round to the nearest hundredth? So it'll be 4.82. So one answer will be 4.82. And if you've typed it in once, the nice thing about your calculator, you can get what you typed previously again. There's a couple ways of doing it. Easiest way if you have the new operating system is just to go up until you have it highlighted and push enter, and it will retype it all for you. And then I'm just going to go back until I get to that minus plus sign. Oh, too far. Oh, no. Too far. There we go. Change it to a minus sign, push enter, and get the other answer, which is negative 19.82. If you don't have the newest operating system and you can't use the arrow key to highlight something and bring it back, you can also get what you typed last by pushing the second key and the enter key. And that will bring up what you typed last. And if you push second and enter again, it'll bring up the one before that. And if you go second and enter again, it'll bring up the one before that. And you can keep going back as far as it has memory to see what you have previously. So we've got both of our answers from this equation. So either the radius could be 4.82, and remember the radius on our cone goes from here to here, or negative 19. Yes. Okay, I'll see where your mistake is. I'll be there in a second.
We got a bit of a problem.
What's the problem?
You kind of cannot have a negative radius.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense over here, right? A negative radius. Both answers work to make it equal to 0, but the only answer that makes sense in the context of the word problem is the 4.82. So that's our only answer. And I'll come check your calculator to see. Whenever you're doing the quadratic formula, there'll be 2 answers, yeah. And there's your homework there.